What's up, everybody? Today we're going to take a deep dive into what's happening in the housing market right now. And trust me, there are some huge changes that you need to know about. We're going to start right here in the DMV, Washington, D.C., Montgomery County, Maryland, and Northern Virginia, and then we will zoom out for a national perspective. Things are really changing, so this video is going to be short, but full of information so you can be in the know about our current housing market. So let's dive right in. Let's start with the DMV market. Right now, the Washington, D.C. metro area is seeing a record surge in home listings. According to Redfin, active listings in D.C. jumped 25% year over year, the biggest spike since 2022. By comparison, active listings nationwide rose 14.2%, the smallest increase in more than a year. Regardless, the DC housing market remains stronger than the US housing market, with homes selling faster and prices still going up. In fact, the median home sale price in the DMV actually increased 4% year over year to $600,964 during the 4 weeks ending April 27th, outpacing the nationwide increase of 1.9% to $387,855. So let's make sense of what's happening here in the DC area. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably guessed why there's such a massive increase in new listings. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE, slashed 121,000 federal jobs since President Trump took office. Federal jobs represent approximately 11.1% of all the jobs in Washington, D.C., the highest share amongst major U.S. metros, analyzed by APM Research Lab. That left many government workers looking to sell as they face job insecurity and the rising cost of living. Many of those people are planning to leave the area because the cost of living is high and they want a new job that allows them to work remotely and be closer to family, said D.C. Redfin agent Mary Bizargan. That kind of uncertainty is pushing more homes on the market. And it's not just DC proper. The biggest jumps in inventory are happening right here in the suburbs. In fact, Montgomery County, Maryland saw a staggering 39% increase in listings, while Fairfax County wasn't far behind with a 33% surge. Check out these year-over-year increases in active listings as of April 27th, 2025. Alexandria, Virginia, up 40.9%. Montgomery County, Maryland, up 38.5%. Loudoun County, Virginia, up 36.8%. Fairfax County, Virginia, up 33.4%. Charles County, Maryland, up 30.9%. Arlington County, Virginia, up 28.6%. Prince George's County, Maryland, up 22.5%. And the District of Columbia, up 14.9%. These jumps are massive, and they're opening up more opportunities for buyers. The surge in inventory is tipping the scales, giving buyers more negotiating power than we've seen in years. I'm seeing way more inspection contingency, appraisal contingency, all of which make the home buying process more thorough and, quite honestly, more fair. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. The days of throwing a sign in the yard and expecting the house to sell, they're over. You need to market your home professionally and expect a serious negotiation with the buyers. My advice, work with a professional who has been in the business for more than 10 years, which has predominantly been a seller's market, so they know how to navigate this ever-changing market. Make sure they have access to contractors to get estimates for those inspection repairs within the very short pressured contingency timeframes. And this is not to say we don't still have homes selling with multiple offers. We do. So you have to be prepared for that as well. As I've been saying for a while here, we are in a mixed market, but it's definitely trending towards more inventory and more negotiation. One clear indicator of that shift is the notable rise in unemployment claims. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, initial unemployment claims peaked in February and are expected to rise again as more layoffs take effect. Many sellers are reaching out to their agents, bracing for the possibility that they may be part of the next wave of layoffs. This kind of anxiety is pushing more homes on the market. And despite all this inventory, DC is still outperforming the national average. As I said earlier, the median home price in DC rose 4.1% year over year to $600,964 for the 4 weeks ending April 27, compared to the national median of $387,855, which only grew by 1.9%. That's a clear indicator that demand is still strong locally. According to Redfin senior economist Asad Khan, what's happening with the housing inventory in Washington, D.C. could be a sign of what's to come in other U.S. housing markets. And while strong housing demand is buoying prices in D.C., the rest of the country isn't so hot. Other markets may not be able to absorb further inventory growth without prices softening. And it's not just in D.C. that's seeing this surge. 9 of the 47 major metros that Redfin analyzed actually posted even bigger increases in active listings for the 4 weeks ending April 27th, with Denver leading the way. When it comes to new listings specifically, Phoenix took the top spot among 4 other metros that saw sharper rises. Redfin even looked back at historical data to make sure this wasn't just a typical post-election spike. Turns out, when Trump took office in 2017, listings did jump, but they leveled out quickly. This time, the numbers are still climbing, suggesting that the government layoffs are a major factor driving this surge. And what's really fascinating is the dynamic between the buyers and the sellers right now. Despite all of that inventory, sellers are still holding out for all cash offers. It's almost as if financing is a red flag in this market. I've heard stories of buyers that come in with higher offers, waived all contingencies, and still got passed over by a cash buyer. I actually had a similar experience myself. The seller chose to leave $33,000 on the table by taking the cash buyer's offer over my buyer's financed one. That is a lot of money. At least to me it is. It makes me wonder if it was the sellers that were nervous, or possibly it was their agent. I guess we'll never know, but I digress. One thing is certain, sellers are nervous and they do not want to risk the buyer's financing falling through, especially with the current job uncertainty looming over the area. With so many federal layoffs and the economic uncertainty, sellers are being extra cautious. They want that certainty that cash brings, even if it means passing up a slightly higher offer, or in my client's case, a much higher offer. And that's putting a lot of pressure on finance buyers to get creative. Whether it's finding better pre-approvals, there are some lenders that have programs where you're making a cash offer even though it's financed. And if you want more information on that, just email me and I'll explain it further. Or structuring your offer where the net is attractive enough to offset any risk. And I put risk in quotes because if a buyer is fully approved to the point of underwriting and all they need is for the house to appraise, the risk is far less than you think. But let's talk about appraisals for a minute. When a housing market starts to soften, appraisals can be an issue, especially if the house was bought during a hot seller market like the past 5 years, and the seller hopes to recoup their money, including their closing costs. They may price it correctly, but if recent comps show a lower sales price, the appraisal may be an issue. This also happened to me recently. One of my sellers priced their home only slightly higher than where they bought it 3 years ago. And when I say slightly, I mean like $3,000 higher. We got a great offer that was $10,000 higher than the list price. Well, the appraisal came in $30,000 lower than the purchase price. This was due to similar homes in the neighborhood selling for less in the last few months. We challenged the appraisal, showed the lender more comps, and ultimately ended up closing on the home with both the buyer and the seller compromising. Fortunately, in this situation, both the buyers and the sellers and the buyer's agent and myself kept calm, and we were able to negotiate through this obstacle to a successful closing. But this isn't always the case. And once a property comes back on the market after being under contract, the chance of getting another great offer diminishes. People may perceive there's an issue with the house, and now you're chasing the market, which is never good. So let's talk about how to navigate this changing market. The best strategy right now is to work with a local expert who truly understands the nuances of this market. For a buyer's agent, crafting the strongest possible offer is key. Whether that's structuring it with fewer contingencies, being flexible with things like closing dates, or even finding creative ways to bridge appraisal gaps. Knowing when to write an aggressive offer or when to write a conservative one. Not every house in this market is created equal. For a seller, Pricing and marketing are more important now than ever. The last thing you want to do is chase the market with price reductions if it doesn't sell right away. A good way to look at the housing market, at least here in the DMV, is that when you first put your house on the market for the first 7 days, it's a seller's market. Then, if your house is still on the market for the next week or two, you're kind of in a balanced market. Then, if your house is still on the market after that, well, now you are in a buyer's market. So, work with someone who really understands what's happening in this market. Having that local expertise can make or break your deal. So let's wrap it all up. If you're in the DMV, more inventory means more choices, but cash is still king. Nationally, prices are leveling out, but it's still a seller's market in a lot of areas. The key is to be prepared, have your financing ready, and act fast when you find the right property. And if you're looking to sell, understanding these shifts can help position your home for maximum visibility and competitive offers. I hope this gave you a clear picture of what's going on in our current housing market. It changes every week. So if you have any questions about anything that's happening here in the DC area, or really anywhere in the country, if I can be of service, just send me an email. We'll set up a Zoom or a call and we'll talk about it. And if you're thinking about selling here locally and you want me to come by your house and give you some advice on what I think, just once again, send me an email. We'll set up an appointment. And as you guys know, I've been doing this a very long time, 24/7, 23 years in fact. I know, I'm that old, but I love to help people. So if you're moving here from out of the area and you want to pick my brain, or if you want my help, send me an email or click on the Calendly link. We'll set up a Zoom. We'll get you started. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Bye.